Hello, vintage outboard motor fans. This is T-Mike here in South Louisiana, and today I'm making a video on how to change an impeller on a 1984 Mercury 9.8 horsepower outboard. I'm going to walk you through changing the impeller on this thing, give you the part number, show you how to disassemble, take off the lower unit, how to take the water pump housing off, replace the impeller, put the housing back on, and then put the lower unit back on to the motor. So if everybody's ready, here we go. Alright, so I got the motor lifted up on the tilt bracket, sitting here ready to go, and we got two bolts to remove. We have to remove this bolt right here that holds the lower unit on, and then we have to remove this bolt underneath here which holds the lower unit on here. Alright, so two bolts to remove, here and here, and I'm going to do that now. Before I remove the bolts and drop the lower unit off the housing, I'm going to go ahead and take the prop off. So I've jammed the board in between the prop and a cavitation plate and got a 5/8 inch wrench to take the nut off. There you go. Got the nut loose. I'll go ahead and take the prop off now. Now that I got the prop off, I'm going to start with the top nut. I got a 9/16 wrench. I'm going to remove this nut. With the nut loosened all the way up to the cavitation plate, it doesn't quite come off. Now I can loosen this bolt and the gear case will drop down to that nut, hold it in place. So here I go with a 5/8 inch socket set to remove this nut. Okay, with this nut loosened, I'm going to take a 1/2 inch socket and I'm going to loosen this nut and try to drop the gear case. Okay, with the nut removed, the gear case has dropped down to this nut. I'm going to finish removing this nut and the gear case ought to come right out. With that nut removed, here comes the gear case. Alright, that's how you remove the gear case. Now I'm going to bring it in the shop and we're going to change out the water pump impeller. Alright, I got the gear case on my little stand here. I'm going to use a clamp to hold it in place. And I got my impeller, replacement impeller ready. I use a Sierra Impeller 18-3039. Okay. That's the impeller I'm going to use to change out. So I got to remove these two bolts, and the impeller housing just slides right off the top. You got to remove this O-ring first, so I'm going to do that now. Alright, with a 1/2 inch socket, I removed the two nuts. Actually, the bolt came out with one of them and the nut came off on the other one, but that's alright, it'll go back together. And now the impeller housing slides right off the top. And there's the plate that comes off. There's the plate and the housing, and there's the impeller. We'll remove that impeller, the old impeller now. Okay, so I removed the old impeller and I got the new impeller here. Now notice how the old impeller blades are bent and lost their elasticity. That means it's time to change it. Okay, so I've taken some 3-in-1 oil and I've lubricated up the new impeller real nice. Okay, now we're going to put it back on. So the impeller has a slot. See that slot right there? that slot in it, in the inside right there, has got to go over the keyway that's right here. See the keyway right there? This slot has to go over it. Okay, so I'm gonna position that slot towards the front, slide it down, get it lined up. Now I'm gonna show you a T-mic trick. Take you a pair of vice grips, put it over the drive shaft. All right, with the gear case facing you, it always spins clockwise. The motor always spins clockwise. So grab this, turn it clockwise while you're pushing down on the impeller, and it'll get in the groove, and the fins will be facing the right direction. I'm gonna do that now. Here we go. I got the impeller on over the holding pin. You can see when I turn my drive shaft clockwise, the fins are bent in the correct direction. Cool? Very good. Now all we got to do is put back the impeller plate and then the housing back on. I'll do that now. And I got the plate and the housing back on. Don't forget to put your rubber O-ring. Alright, so that's the replacement. Now I'm gonna go ahead and change the gear oil. I'm gonna drain it, and I'm gonna use my handy dandy automatic gear oil transfer kit here to replace the gear oil. Then we're gonna take the lower unit and test it in a barrel, in a bucket, to make sure it pumps water, and then we're gonna put it back on where it belongs on the outboard there. Here we go. And I got the plate and the housing back on. Don't forget to put your rubber O-ring. Alright, so that's the replacement. Now I'm gonna go ahead and change the gear oil. I'm gonna drain it, and I'm gonna use my handy dandy automatic gear oil transfer kit here to replace the gear oil. Then we're going to take the lower unit and test it in a barrel, in a bucket, to make sure it pumps water, and then we're going to put it back on where it belongs on the outboard there. Here we go. So with the gear oil drained into my drain pan, I've now hooked up my DIY gear oil transfer pump. I took a garden sprayer and cut the hose off and added this kit into be able to thread into the lower unit with a shutoff valve right here. And I just pressure up the tank. When it pressures up, I open the valve and let the oil go in till it comes out the top, and then it's filled. So we're doing that now. Right, the oil is coming out, so I'm going to shut her off. And gear case is full. I'm going to put the upper and lower drains in, and we'll be ready to test her. Now, to test your water pump impeller, to make sure it is pumping, just fill a 5-gallon bucket with water, put a 1/2-inch drill on the drive shaft, and make sure the water level is above the water pump. Make sure the level is above, and just spin the drive shaft clockwise. As you can see, she is pumping water. Now all we got to do is stab her back onto the motor and test her out for real. Okay, now we have to stab the gear case back into the lower unit. Alright, so there's 3 things that have to line up. The shift rod has to line up, the drive shaft has to line up, and the water tube has to line up. And that'll make the bolt line up in the proper space. So if you look at the lower unit, alright, The bolt is going to go through here. Shift rod is going to go into here. The lower unit is going to stab all the way up. The drive shaft is going to stab all the way up into there. And then the shift rod, the water tube, lines up here. So you have to make sure all four things line up and it ought to slip right in. So I'm going to do that now. Once all four components line up, you can see the bolt is now showing up through here. I'm going to start that nut, which will suck it all up in there, and then I can put the nut on this bolt here after that. Here I go. Alright, now that I got both nuts tightened, I'm going to not put the prop on yet. I'm going to drop it in a barrel and we're going to run it. Make sure she's pumping water and make sure she's cooling. Here we go. As you can see, she's pumping water. So, mission accomplished. That's how you change the water pump impeller and the gear oil in a 1984 Mercury 9.8 vintage outboard. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. See you next video. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Here at T Mike's Vintage Outboards, we're doing it one motor at a time. Please click on subscribe. I guarantee to provide weekly videos. Au revoir mes amis and laissez les bon temps rouler.